Rob, this is going to be really interesting to me because you and Mike started this in the trenches. You probably had no vision of where it was going to take you. Fast forward from a truck and probably 18-hour days and not a lot of fun to a business that grew and became a sort of a poster child for what a great HVAC and service business could look like. You sold it. You decided to collaborate together and try to help other people in the business realize the true potential and the true enrichment, not just financially, but in fulfillment. And now look where you've come. I'd love to ask you some questions about what your observations have taught you about the people you help and the people that you're trying to help, and then get into some of the nitty gritty because you specialize in the work you do for the business in really getting them into understanding the financials, the percentages, the correlations, getting their numbers in alignment so that whatever they're doing, they're not spending too much, they're allowing themselves enough yield. They understand what the game is all about because they're not taught that. So let's start, if you don't mind, back in the beginning because it must have been a pretty exciting ride from the days you two started to where you are now. Do you have any reflections on that?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, when we started, we started because we enjoyed being together, right? We enjoyed each other's company, and it was fun, right? And we didn't realize that we were working 12, 14, 16-hour days. It was just us hanging out and making money,
Okay.
right? And that was it. It was awesome. But, as we aged and we got older, what I started to realize was if we wanted to try to take free time away for ourselves, the relationship to our time in the business versus our time out of the business, our financials shrunk exponentially, right?
That's an interesting perspective. It's like reverse exponential. Okay.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, it was like, okay, well, we're going to take a couple of weeks off this summer. Well, when you're only the two guys who are generating the income and you take a couple of weeks off, what happens, right? All that money starts to dissipate. So then we said, all right, we're going to grow this business, right? And we decided after 9 years of banging around in a truck, we're going to grow this business. But what happened was all the things we did that we made money at before, we were not making money. Because in this industry, when you're two guys in a truck or you're out there doing the work, selling the work, there's one commodity that you have at the time that is free, and that's your time.
Yes.
And what most business owners in this industry don't realize is that they were making money when it was just them in a truck or them and a helper in a truck because their costs never really changed regardless.
And they weren't really factoring themselves in. They were saying, hey, I'm making money. They weren't saying if I replace myself, this is going to cost me $500 a day or whatever.
Right, exactly. So it was interesting to me was here I am now replacing my time and moving my time inside the business and hiring people and putting them outside doing the work. Well, my profits shrunk from 35-40%, which weren't real profits because it was
just you, but
right. Those were margins that me and Mike were taking because our time never really impacted the cost of the job. And then we put people out there and realized, well, the longer they stayed out on the job, then the less money we made. And what I find happens with all the business owners that I deal with is they struggle with those same concepts. Here it is 25 years later, and the same errors and same mistakes that I made 25 years ago, these guys are still making today. So no, it's not like anybody's evolving in this industry.
And do you think that's because they have no one, or they have had no one to sort of sit them down figuratively or literally and force them to do a reality check that is based on, do you want to continue this way? Do you want to grow? Growth has incredible benefits and rewards, but it also has realistic costs, financial and otherwise, that you have to really respect and acknowledge, or you'll never be able to do it.
100%. I think one of the interesting things that happened to us, and I see happening with everybody else we deal with, is they get stuck in a knowledge track, let's say, or a mindset of what their skills are and what they need to keep honing. And
Yes.
that is the trade that got them there.
Yes.
You know, and when me and Mike started early on 30 years ago, we had a gentleman who we met who we really respected him from the trade side of the business, because he was a author and a writer of reference books for the electrical industry. And he had told me and Mike, we met him and we asked him to dinner because we were always looking to gather information. And he said, "You guys are really smart electricians. You know, you're great at what you do. But you have to realize something. You're not an electrician anymore." And that was like shocking to us. We're like, what do you mean we're not electricians? I've worked my whole life to become an electrician. He goes, "You were an electrician. Now you're a business owner. Focus on learning how to run a business the way a business owner needs to run his business, not as an electrician." And we didn't listen to that. And then 9 years later, when I realized I needed to really hone my skills if I want to grow this thing and have it work for me instead of me working for it.
And that's the key. You really need the business to work harder for you.
Absolutely. And then I looked back and said, wow, I missed a real valuable lesson, but I'm going to pay attention to it now. So.
And let's use what you and Mike went through, and then how you try in your work with CEO Warrior to translate and transfer that knowledge to deserving people who don't grasp it. What do you think, in an order of importance, they have to learn differently, and they have to do differently, and they have to understand differently, and why?
I think the number one thing I try to teach people that in a service industry, and we teach a lot of service-based businesses, is one of the biggest things a service business does is sell time.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
And it's one of the least tracked, least appreciated aspects of what they have. Everybody looks at what they buy and their materials and their equipment, and they're very scrutiny when it comes to how they handle that stuff. But they don't calculate their true available time to sell, right? And we sell time.
Yes.
Right? And if we have our guys driving here or driving there or in the shop or over here or over there, that's time there's not selling. So the actual time that we get to sell is a small percentage of the overall time that we pay.
It's profound. And with that realization, what did you change, and what do you try to get everybody that you advise, counsel, work with, what do you try to get them to realize?
That efficiency is the key to making money, right? We always used to say, well, you want to make money, either raise the ceiling or lower the floor,
Yes.
right? And what does that mean, right? We could push sales, but if we push sales and don't worry about what's happening after the fact, then that money goes right out the door and never makes
You're
it to
right.
the profit bucket, right? If we focus on efficiency, which is how well we can earn those sales and how efficiently we can spend our money in relation to those sales, that's what really starts to grow the profit bucket.
And that makes a lot of sense. I have a little client that I help who does work around our house for us, and he's into masonry. And he gets a lot of leads from some of the online services. And we looked at it, and we realized that 80% of the geographic responses never convert. Mm-hmm. But he's spending 80 or 85% of his time going out on them. And
Exactly.
I said, just stop taking them. If you just take those based on your own experience, and you spend all your time on the leads in the areas, in the categories that have the highest historic probability of working, you're gonna, and he did. He started doubling and redoubling just by using that data point differently.
Yep. I mean, analytics are huge, and that's something most small businesses do not focus on, right? Is the data and what's happening and where they're making their money. And that's something me and Mike focused on all the time. And we became comfortable with the fact the minute we started to grow the business that not every person is our customer, right?
Yes.
Not every person that calls you, and that's fine. You have to recognize that. That's why there's many different car manufacturers and many different price points of automobiles, right? Both of them do the job. Some of them do it differently, right? Some have more bells and whistles, more creature comforts, right? So we recognized that we were going to focus on an area of the market that appreciated the values that we were bringing forward, and that's where we were going to make our mark. And we let the other portion of the market go to the rest of the people.
And it worked well. And do you teach what I call either nichifying, polarizing, being inordinately clear on what the target audience you're addressing is and what you're not? And when you do that, do people go, wow, I've never thought about that?
100%.
That's interesting.
It really is. It's it's funny. I think when I talk to any successful business owner, they look at business like it's easy, right? Like I have no doubt I could start another business of any kind and be successful automatically, right? Because we look past the obstacles, right? We just say, this is what it needs to cost, this is the market I'm going to go after, and this is what I'm going to do to gather it. But I think what happens is when the guys go from being the doer to now the seller to the offerer of their services, they internalize everything and look at every customer out there the way they would look at it themselves, right? And something Mike would always say, and I would emulate was, you're not your customer, don't try to be your customer.
Interesting. So in your work, and if you, it's a disservice, but if you summarized in a nutshell what CEO Warrior is and why it's really, really a critical and a uniquely vital resource for people who really want to take a lifestyle business and do something really meaningfully with it as far as growth, as far as economic and fulfillment. What do you think you bring to people that they can't get anywhere else? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot and ask you to be arrogant. I'm asking you to be clinical because you know what they've got out there. You know what's available. You know what, not only what's available, but what effect or ineffectiveness a lot of that stuff has. People go get entertained, go back, status quo. Go get entertained intellectually, status quo. What do you think about your, I don't know what to call it, approach, your system, your belief system, your support system, your strategic approach to growing your member clients that's different, and why?
I think the most powerful thing that me and Mike bring to the Warriors is that we've been in their shoes. We've walked that walk, right? And we've climbed that mountain, and we're the Sherpas of this industry, right? Same, you can go and climb Mount Everest, and very few people do it on their own. They all hire a Sherpa.
Right.
Why? Because he's more acclimated for that conditions. He knows the way. He understands the elements. He can predict through experience what's about to happen or what's going to happen. And if they find themselves in a situation, most likely he's been in it before, and he knows how to react to it. So me and Mike are the Sherpas of this industry.
I think that's a great metaphoric example. What is it, you set this up because there's a lot of easier ways to really prosper in business. Basically, holding hands of people, course correcting them, inspiring them, educating them, living with their, their hopes, their dreams, the agony, the ecstasy. That's a lot of commitment. What is it that you guys get most out of this? Because I know enough about you, you don't have to do this. You've committed not just to doing it, but to doing it at a level of excellence and encompassing, that is very, very, very unprecedented. What is it that drives you guys?
It probably pulls on a moment in our lives where we were ready to walk away and end what we were doing. And honestly, probably would have wound up separating our friendship and everything. Not that we were at odds, but we had both gotten to a point where we couldn't do it anymore, right? And we grew the business and improved the lives of our families, and not just our immediate families. Me and Mike both have improved the lives of our external families and everybody around us. And when we had grown gold medal and got it to a point where it was uber successful and you know, within obviously reason, we had everything we really needed in life and we had time and things of that nature. We went out and we started visiting some of our friends that we have helped along the way over the years. And when we walked into their shops, and we never been to their businesses, and we started to see some of our creations or ideas that we had passed along, and the excitement
They came alive.
that came alive with it. And we walked out of there, you know, where we were kind of at a monotone point in our business life. Like, you know, well, we're good, you know, everything's going great. And then I came out of there like feeling excitement, right? And I realized that I love helping people win, you know? And the greatest thing about business is it's a win, right? Like we're in business because we want to constantly win.
Yes.
We're addicted to, it's just the same way a prize fighter never wants to retire, right? Because he loves being a champion.
Yes.
So we get to experience that over and over and over again with our warriors, and watching them have the excitement come back to them about their business and their growth and the wins. I guess I'm addicted to winning.
Well, I think, but you're not just addicted to winning. You're addicted to producing winners.
Yeah.
And I think you've seen something, because I've watched, observed, and been impressed. You already see inherently more in someone than they perhaps see in themselves. You see all that their time, their effort, their opportunity, their commitment has the capacity to give them, but that left to their own devices, they would probably never be able to realize. And you really have the ability to transform, as you said, not just the lives of the clients or the members, but all the extended families, their team members, their families, the vendors, everybody that flows from them. And that's got to be exciting. Where do you see ultimately you taking this? This is growing at a really respectable level, particularly given the fact that you don't want to see, you want everyone to flourish who's good and qualitative, but you don't want to help everyone. You have a certain niche, a certain focus, a certain profile of service providers you want to be associated with and contribute to. So where do you see this going?
I'm sure sooner one day we'll pass the torch, right? But right now, I think we get such joy out of giving back to an industry that did so much for us. I'm not really sure where the end game is. Right now, I'm just having fun doing what we're doing.
And you're having fun making a lot of people a lot more successful, a lot happier, and having a lot richer lives, not just financially, but in terms of balance and just the great relationships they're redeeming with their families. Thank you very much. I enjoy you and Mike, and I find you both extremely intelligent, extremely clear cut in your understanding of what you're trying to do, who you're trying to do it for, and what they need most. And the services and the support teams you've built and the work that you personally do, because I didn't even realize that you personally work with the clients to help them understand their financial percentages, their goals, the implications, how to adjust it, how to really get comfortable. That's a great commitment, and it's got to be something that you do more as a labor of love than you do just as a business. So I commend you both, and thank you for letting me interview you, because it's a privilege.
Thank you. It's always been a privilege to spend time and learn from your wisdom, so I appreciate that.
Goes both ways. Thank you.
Thank you.